is the fruit of their womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
And the Word was made flesh,
and dwelt amongst us.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God,
that we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ. Pour forth, we beseech you, O Lord, your grace into our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ, your Son, was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen.
RPN Radio Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao, member kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Yung Transport Service Cooperative entered into a service contract with the government to offer libreng sakay from April 19 to June 16, 2022. Now that the contract has ended, drivers and operators suffer from the impact of skyrocketing fuel prices. When the program was still on, drivers used to receive at least 1,000 pesos for 9 hours of work per day. Now, they only receive the minimum wage in Metro Manila. That's 570 pesos per day.
We're hoping na magtuloy itong magkaroon pa ng SC4 para sa lahat kasi talagang yung tao, ramdam nila yung ang laki ng nasisave nila kapag may libreng sakay.
The cooperative notes from 5 to 6,000 passengers per day for its fleet of 30 units during the libreng sakay days. It's now down to 3 to 4,000 passengers. There were also times when passengers do not pay.
Sakper kami sir hinuhulog lang yung pera sa box. Bali sinasabihan namin sir, ma'am pakihulog naman kasi nga sa mahal na nga ng gas ngayon. Baka pwede naman maghulog naman kayo.
And that's not all. A driver who refused to be named said he has yet to receive a portion of his salary from the government.
Yung May 12, hanggang ngayon wala pa.
So ibig sabihin isang buwan na sweldo nyo pa hindi nyo nakukuha?
Oo, napapalas na ako sa bahay namin sir. Kailan ngayon na sana namin pambayad ng bahay, may lang, wala pa.
Stakeholders are hoping that the government will consider expanding the libreng sakay program at least until fuel prices normalize.
Dagdag tipid po sa gastusin. Lalo na puntas na po ng mga gastusin ngayon.
Pag lumalabas ng pera sa iyo, di syempre nang masakit. At added budget, yung ibang pambayad sa pamasahe, may ibibigay mo sa ibang pangangailangan mo.
Kagaya po ng
sa pagkain.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board says more libreng sakay contracts will end on June 30, while the EDSA busway will remain free to commuters until the end of July. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
In our monitoring outside Metro Manila, fuel products now cost almost 100 pesos per liter. In Mandaue City in Cebu, diesel prices range from over 94 to 98 pesos per liter. Gasoline costs 87 to 88 pesos per liter. In Cebu City, a gasoline station charges up to more than 97 pesos per liter for diesel and about 92 pesos for gasoline. In Calibo, Aklan, fuel prices range from over 87 to 91 pesos per liter. Up north, in Baguio, gasoline and diesel prices have both reached the 90 peso per liter mark. The most expensive gasoline in one station is over 99 pesos per liter. Officials tightened security in the perimeters of the National Museum and Malacanang ahead of the presidential inauguration on June 30th. These include the conduct of maritime patrols. David Santos reports.
Covering the 25-kilometer-long Pasig River, Coast Guard personnel is keeping an eye on a restricted area just outside Malacanang. It stretches about more than 2 kilometers of the waterway.
We have no serious threats to public safety. Pero ayaw nating magpakampante.
On the eve of the inauguration day, Pasig River and Manila Bay will be among the areas that will be heavily patrolled as part of the security ring around the National Museum as well as the palace. Given its proximity to the two venues, Pasig River is part of the contingency plan concerning where to transport both the outgoing and incoming presidents.
We also provided and requested notice to mariners para po dun sa ating mga marinero na dadaan dito, they will be notified earlier that yung pong ating Pasig River will be closed in the meantime.
While a no-sail zone will likely be imposed in some parts of Pasig River during select hours on Inauguration Day, the Coast Guard doesn't seem to see the need to implement the same rule along Manila Bay. Even if protest actions are held along Rojas Boulevard, the Coast Guard argues such is a safe distance from the inauguration venue, meaning likely it cannot disrupt the inaugural events. Still, security forces will be on their toes.
May mga naka-standby din tayo na contingent na to reinforce the civil disturbance unit ng ating Philippine National Police.
The Coast Guard will deploy at least 500 personnel to work with units of the police, military, and the Presidential Security Group. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
Incoming Internal Revenue Chief Lilia Guillermo says she will tackle the multi-billion peso Marcos estate tax. Guillermo tells CNN Philippines she has yet to see the documents but assures the public the agency will follow the Supreme Court ruling. The decision was made final in 1999. Court records show the Marcos family was ordered to pay 23 billion pesos in estate taxes in 1997, but figures could balloon to 203 billion pesos, including penalties and interests.
And then I will have to talk to the president that BIR needs to collect it. And maybe I will inform him, Mr. President, it's not you who's going to pay this, but it's the estate.
Correct.
Your family, I hope that there will be no objections and be a role model to at least comply the rules of taxation.
President-elect Marcos earlier said, quote, there is a lot of fake news involved in the estate tax issue and that it would be better to leave the matter to lawyers. Will the migrant workers chief heed calls to lift the deployment ban on Filipino workers to Saudi Arabia? Incoming Secretary Susan Toots Ople vows to exhaust all diplomatic channels to decide on the matter. And as Tristan Odal reports, Ople is finalizing her priority programs for the new department.
Overseas Filipino worker Arabel is returning to Saudi Arabia for the third time. We met her while she was saying goodbye to her parents and 2 children at the airport.
Malulungkot na naman kasi andito yung mga kasama ko yung mga baby ko. Pati si mama, si papa, ako. Kasi ito yung mga kasama ko paalis.
Arabel says processing her documents went smoothly last month, but it's not the same with other returning OFWs. She expresses hope that the new Department for Migrant Workers and the incoming Marcos administration can help expedite the process.
Yung iba nagpa-medical na, yung gastos-gasto, sana agad na mapabilis din yung pag-alis nila. Kasi yung mayroon ako ibang mga kasama na ang tagal ng naghihintay.
In a roundtable discussion with Business Mirror, incoming Migrant Workers Secretary Susan Toots Ople says she'll spend her first day in office reviewing all processes involving deployment of OFWs.
Lahat ng sistema mula sa pag-a-apply, mula sa pagkuha ng OEC, yung mga mandatory fees, paano ba ang verification, ano ba ang dapat na datnan ng OFW sa mga embahada natin. So lahat nun isi-systems review natin.
Also part of Ople's initial plans for the department includes setting up migrant workers' offices in embassies and conducting global town hall meetings. She also intends to tap social media platforms to combat human trafficking and illegal recruitment.
Mas mabilis na takedown ng mga FB pages na pugad ng illegal recruitment.
For now, Ople is not keen on lifting the deployment ban for newly hired domestic helpers bound for Saudi Arabia. The ban was imposed by Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello due to unpaid wages and benefits for some 10,000 OFWs.
We cannot lift the ban without certain assurances. We have to come up with a more balanced and realistic solution. So, we will explore diplomatic solutions.
The incoming migrant workers chief eyes full operation of the new department in January 2023. Under the law, the new department needs to meet 3 conditions: and implementing rules and regulation, an approved staffing pattern, and a budget under the 2023 General Appropriations Act. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
In other news, in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia City Hall offering a $20,000 reward for any leads on the gunman behind the fatal shooting of a Filipino lawyer. Philippine Consul General in New York, El Mercato, says Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney apologized for the, quote, terrible tragedy and vowed that justice will be served in the case of John Albert Lilo. Lilo and his mother were riding an Uber on the way to the airport when at least 6 shots were fired at their vehicle last weekend. More stories ahead on Newsnight. It is day 1 of the booster rollout for minors with underlying illnesses. CNR Arcangel tells us how the vaccinations went here in Metro Manila. And how are hospitals faring amid the uptick in COVID-19 cases? Caroline Bonkin shows us the situation on the ground. You're watching CNN Philippines.
Love is patient and kind. It does not envy, does not boast, and is not proud. It does not dishonor, nor is self-seeking.
Pagbubutihin ko na po.
It is not easily angered and keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, always hopes, and always perseveres.
Why it's important to conserve energy, especially at this point in time. Number 1 is to manage the electricity bill at home. And second is to ensure that there is enough electricity for all. Alam naman natin na we need electricity in all facets of our lives, no? Especially business, no? Now that we're recovering, we want the businesses to recover, the whole economy as a whole, no?
Nung naging aware kami doon sa na dapat magtipid tayo dahil ito yung nangyayari ngayon tapos tumagal pa yung pandemic. So nagkaroon kami ng habit na ito dapat yung magiging galaw natin sa bahay para makatipid tayo.
We will continue our programs, no, especially in energy efficiency. We will continue to educate our customers. Yung energy efficiency cannot be done by Meralco alone, by DOE alone. It takes all the stakeholders and most especially our customers.
Let the madness begin.
The Zalora Big Fashion Sale is here. It's going to be big on fashion, bigger on discounts, with the biggest brands. From the 17th to the 26th of June. Download the app now.
We have the power to protect Mother Earth, keeping it cleaner and greener, to preserve our one and only home. Powering the good life. Meralco.
Welcome back. Some hospitals are seeing a slight increase in COVID-19 patients as the health department records a steady rise in infections. Caroline Bonkin gives us a look on the ground at the San Lazaro Hospital in Manila.
A man was rushed to San Lazaro Hospital in Manila on Wednesday afternoon. Having difficulty breathing, health workers gave him oxygen supply. He's a suspected COVID-19 patient.
San Lazaro Hospital saw fewer COVID-19 patients in April and May, but this month, more people are coming for COVID-19 testing and consultations.
Ngayon po, we have 25 cases admitted. Although mababa po ito, but compared to 2 weeks ago, we only had 8 admissions.
Most patients here have mild and moderate COVID-19 symptoms.
If we see a need na wala po silang mauwian, wala pong isolation for them, so ina-admit po namin for isolation or quarantine purposes.
Should cases go up further, Dr. De Guzman says they're more prepared now. the hospital has kept its COVID triage and testing areas intact. A new building for emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases opened this year, with additional beds for COVID-19 patients. Medicines and equipment all stocked up.
Nag-level 1 tayo. It has given us time to recharge.
There are still over 150 empty COVID beds. The health department reports over 450 daily COVID-19 cases in the past week. That's almost the same as those recorded in the second week of February. But health officials do not see a need to raise the alert level.
Hindi sumasabay ang severe and critical. It is not translating to a higher admission in our hospitals.
Let's put it in perspective. We had 18,000 cases a day in Metro Manila in January. Ilan kahapon? 218. Ang layo-layo nun.
But DOH shares latest projections, citing another possible surge in infections by third week of July to first week of August, with a presence of more transmissible and immune-escaping variants, low compliance to health protocols, and slow booster uptake.
Pinaka-importante ngayon sa ating mga komunidad, lahat na magkakaroon ng simptomas, isolate at once. Magpabakuna na po tayo kung tayo po ay eligible.
Health officials report 32 more transmissible Omicron subvariant BA.5 cases on Wednesday, but say there's still no community transmission yet, as the cases could still be linked together. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
The health department begins rolling out boosters for immunocompromised adolescents. CNR Kanghel tells us when the rest of the 12 to 17 age group can follow suit.
16-year-old Kian Nimes and his father were at the National Children's Hospital for check-up when they learned about the ongoing rollout of a third dose of vaccine for immunocompromised minors aged 12 to 17. With COVID cases on the rise again, Richard Nimes grabbed the chance to have his son, who has kidney disease, vaccinated.
Katulad yan, nagkaroon na siya ng sakit. Humihina po yung immune system. Kaya pwede po siyang kapitan ng kaya pinabaksin ko na po siya para po kung sakali pong tamaan po tayo ng virus, hindi naman po grabe talaga na mapupunta sa severe.
So far, only the National Children's Hospital and Quirino Memorial Medical Center in Quezon City are offering third doses to immunocompromised minors. But the health department says the rollout will be expanded next week, with various local and private hospitals in Metro Manila allowed to administer the shots. An estimated 238,000 immunocompromised children aged 12 to 17 are eligible for a third dose, which they could receive at least 28 days after getting a second shot. These include those who have renal or metabolic conditions, are receiving cancer treatment, or taking high-dose steroids that weaken the immune system. The Food and Drug Administration has issued an emergency use authorization for Pfizer as a third dose for adolescents.
We know very well that they are the most vulnerable to infection. Kaya talagang we are prioritizing them.
During the ceremonial rollout at the Children's Hospital, only 1 out of the 3 kids presented to the media received a third dose. The other 2 got inoculated for the first time. The hospital chief, Dr. Moriel Creencia, says immunocompromised minors need medical clearance to get a third shot.
Meron pong isa ngayon dapat na renal patient. Unfortunately, ay hindi po siya na-clear ng aming nephrologist kasi sobrang taas daw po yung steroids pa niya.
The DOH says over 9 million adolescents without comorbidities could receive a third COVID jab soon.
Ang iba pong mga kabataan 12 to 17 years old ay isusunod na rin po soon, maybe by next week or a couple of days after the immunocompromised. Gusto lang po nating ayusin ang pagpapatupad.
The DOH says it is stepping up its information campaign to encourage parents with immunocompromised children, senior citizens, and adults with comorbidities to get a third COVID-19 dose. CNR Kanghel, CNN Philippines.
Health spokesperson Maria Rosario Vergere is set to lead the National COVID-19 Vaccination Operations Center. Health Secretary Francisco Duque designated her as the center's next incident manager. Vergere will replace Undersecretary Mirna Cabutaje effective June 30th. Millions of younger children in the United States can now receive protection for COVID-19. Only Pfizer doses may be administered for kids 6 months to 5 years old for now, as the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has yet to recommend Moderna for the age group. Younger children can get their vaccines at pediatricians' offices or clinics and pharmacies. A fourth COVID-19 shot may be on the horizon for the rest of the American population. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy says discussions are underway. Vaccine advisors will meet on updated COVID-19 doses on June 28th. Murthy says the CDC has recommended another booster for 50 years old and above. Back here at home, groups condemned the order to block access to websites allegedly linked to communist rebels, calling it a, quote, blatant attack on the freedom of information and expression. The National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, or NUJP, denounces the, quote, arbitrary inclusion of Bulatlat, Pinoy Weekly, and other independent news sites. The rights group Amnesty International also expressing deep concern over the directive made just 1 week before the Marcos administration takes office. Calls on the government to rescind the order. The National Telecommunications Commission ordered internet service providers to immediately block websites supposedly linked to terror groups following the request of National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon. Sports and entertainment news. Still ahead, a historic feat for the NU Lady Bulldogs, who won the UAAP women's volleyball title after over 6 decades. Plus, a former actress in the Philippines has officially debuted as a K-pop idol. Find out how Shanti began her music journey in Korea after the break.
Sa dami ng taong nakalipas, salamat dahil hindi niyo kami iniwan. Dahil sa inyong tulong, mas naging maayos ang akala namin nakalimutan na. Basta't nariyan kayo, alam naming hindi mapapabayaan ang aming paghihirap para sa sarili, sa pamilya, sa kapwa, at sa bansa. Kampante kami, basta't kasama kayo.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy! With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
Joe Saldariaga po.
At Maita Basa David.
Ngayong June, dahil sa halos 40 centavos na increase, 10 pesos and 46 centavos per kilowatt hour ang overall rate ng typical household. Ang increase ay dahil sa dagdag singil ng generation companies, bunga ng pagtaas ng fuel prices.
Sa taas ng fuel, halos 22 pesos na gas ang kailangan para makapagmotor ng 10 kilometers. What's the bright idea para bawas gastos, Engineer Joel?
Bawas gastos pag naka-e-motorcycle. Less than 5 pesos ang charge para umandar ng 10 kilometers. Sa e-scooter, piso lang. Ang matitipid mo, up to 95%. Iwas pa sa usok at change oil.
Basta laging tandaan, road safety first.
Magsuot ng tamang helmet at mag-bike lane. Ingat ha! Hanggang sa susunod na Meralco Advisory.
This is Newsnight on CNN Philippines. The 65-year drought is over for the NU Lady Bulldogs, beating LaSalle for the UAAP Women's Volleyball crown. NU took finals game 2 in 3 sets on Wednesday at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay and completed a rare sweep of season 84. Another significant win for the Lady Bulldogs, with Belia Belen becoming the tournament's first rookie MVP. NU's head coach tells CNN Philippines Sports Desk what makes the player and the rest of the winning team so special.
Si Bella kasi, pagdating sa training, makita mo kasi talaga yung eagerness niya. Lahat sila gusto niya mag-improve every training and sobrang nakikinig sila. Kaya isa pa kasi maganda sa attitude nila, enjoy lang talaga sila. Kahit nahihirapan, kahit may masakit.
NU team captain Princess Robles went home with the finals MVP title. Filipino fans of Alanis Morissette will have to wait longer to see the Canadian-American artist live in Manila again. The singer's two-day show for her Jagged Little Pill tour at the MOA Arena was canceled because of scheduling issues and, quote, logistical challenges of global touring in 2022. Alanis says she will return to the country as soon as she can. Ticket holders will be fully refunded. A Filipina-Argentinian actress has officially joined the K-pop scene, making her debut with how do you pronounce this? Lapilus. Chantal Videla, also known as Shanti, released the single Hit Ya under the girl group this week. The 90-year-old singer has starred in Filipino shows and was part of Star Magic Circle's 2018 batch alongside Donnie Pangilinan and Charlie Dizon. Shanti spoke with CNN Philippines New Day on how she entered the Korean music industry.
Because of the pandemic, of course, I had to go back to Argentina and all that. But before that, how do you say? Like, my dad had this Korean friend, and that Korean friend had like connections with MLD Entertainment. There was a time where like our CEO has been looking for like possible like Filipina member for his future Korean girl group, and my dad's Korean friend happened to like, oh, look, what about this girl and stuff like that. And then that's where, chain reaction, we met the CEO, we had a meeting, and then he just wanted me to start the training at first. And that's where it started.
The music video for Hit Ya is trending on YouTube with nearly 600,000 views. And that is it for now. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. and on Politics as Usual at 8. That's our new time slot. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Before we go, let's take a look at the importance of farm-to-market roads in ensuring proper transport of food supply.
At the height of the pandemic, movement was limited to only essential goods and services. But even then, we felt a major gap in the supply and demand chain of local produce. This led to a scarcity for consumers and surplus for producers. This brought to light the importance of farm-to-market roads, bridges, and similar construction projects related to food and agriculture.
Nag-grow out kami ng tilapia. Tapos recently may cream dory kami, may hipon. Kami din yung nagsusupply ng tilapia in nearby provinces like La Union, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Bataan, sa Manila, tsaka sa Cavite. Nag-harvest kami everyday, 25 to 30 tons a day. Tapos everyday nasa kalsada din kami nagdi-deliver ng isda. Yung dinideliver namin, kailangan live makarating sa market. May truck kami, may tangke, kailangan ng tubig para pagdating sa market, buhay pa yon. Yung dore namin, pag gina-harvest namin, naka-ice. Kaya dapat as soon as possible makarating sa market din para di matunawan ng yelo, para fresh pa rin. Importante sa amin sa deliver yung mga expressways. Kasi pag live tilapia, dapat on time makarating sa market. Halimbawa, pag sa La Union, dati nung wala pa yung TPLEX, mga 7 hours yung biyahe. Laking ginhawa nung may TPLEX. 4 hours na lang. Dahil bumilis yung biyahe ng truck, yung mga tao, di masyadong pagod, di masyadong puyat. Hindi rin delikado sa highway. Malaking bagay yung mga farm to market road, tulad ng mga expressways natin. Kasi pag kumahango ka ng di-deliver, mapapabilis yung deliver niya. Konti yung expenses, makakatipid. Kami, isda yung business namin. Kailangan namin yung expressway para on time yung deliver sa market ng product namin. Sa Pilipinas naman, sagana tayo sa resources. Kaya dapat tayo, tangkilikin natin yung sarili natin. Sa tulong ng expressway, nakokonekta niya lahat yung probinsya ng Pilipinas. Napapadali siyang makarating sa pagkainan ng tao.
Our expressways provide faster access to local agriculture and livestock suppliers. Expressways, road infrastructure plays a very significant role in accelerating agricultural production. It is one of the key components for development, as it promotes access to economic and social services. generating increased agricultural income and productive employment.
Marcy, Wilar, taga Imelda, Samongga, Sibugay. So, king tigpaminaw sa inyong pag-araya. Nakapalit ko sa inyong bitron nga serapya. Dayon, ginapainom na ko siya kada gabi. Tapos, tuka dato nakainom siya, kusog na siya mukaon, kusog na sad mo tulog.
Kinsang nakainom ang imuhang?
Ang akong anak ya. Dayon, sukad ato ya, kay dili man guni siya mutulog magabi iya. Dayon, dili sad kay mukaon. Akong gisulaya ng inyong bitron serap. Dayon, karon yan, uyon naman kay maayo naman sila mga tulog, ug maayo na sad mukaon.
Pananakit ng kasukasuhan na solusyonan dahil sa pag-inom ng vitamin B complex ng Doc Alternatibo.
Sa una ka nang wala ko nagamit aning B complex ang bawo ka ng atong edad na najibation. Mag ka ng akong mga kamot na something wrong nga akong bation.
Cramps nga na.
Cramps. So, nga sa paggamit na ko ani kay anindot jud siya ang B complex para sa nerve. Ako si Manuelitan Camadas, 61 years old.
Pruweba sa kaepektibo ng B-Complex ng Doc Alternatibo. Ang B-Complex, exclusive na mabibili sa Doc Alternatibo branch.
Ang Doc Alternatibo Center sa Surigao City Branch, AY Tandan Building, Amat Corner, Sarveda Street, Surigao City. Sa Cantilan, Surigao del Sur Branch, 2nd floor, Iparagari Building, Aurelianeda Street, Barangay Linintian.
Bukas alas 9 ng umaga hanggang alas 5 ng hapon. Doc Alternatibo para sa herbal at natural na lunas.
Kaibigang magsasaka mula sa LG Life Sciences Korea, ipinakikilala ang Montana 250 Easy. Montana 250 Easy o difenoconazole ay makabagong systemic fungicide laban sa sheath blight at iba pang mga sakit ng palay na dala ng fungus. Montana 250 Easy nanunood sa dahon at pinapasok ang lahat ng parte ng palay para sa mas mahabang proteksyon at lunas upang ito ay manatiling berde, ligtas sa sakit para sa mas masaganang ani. Sa 2 kutsara lamang sa bawat knapsack sprayer, ang difenoconazole na kinilalang most powerful systemic fungicide ay abot kaya na. Montana 250 Easy, exclusively distributed by Aldis Incorporated.
Ang katawan natin, araw-araw, bugbog sa trabaho. Kaya minsan, di natin maiiwasan ang aray. Pero ngayon, may mabisang panlaban na ang Pilipinas laban sa mga aray ng katawan. Calabo Plus Liniment Oil. May sangkap ng mga pinaghalong medicinal herbs. Calabo Plus Liniment Oil. All-in-one solution para sa muscle pain at maging ang skin itchiness. Kaya subukan na ang Calabo Plus Liniment Oil. Para goodbye aray, hello, sarap! Calabo Plus Liniment Oil. Mabibili na sa inyong mga suking butika.
RPN Radio Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao, member kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
2 years of working at home have made people feel safer during the pandemic. But now that a number of companies are asking their employees to report to work, many are feeling anxious and worried about going back to their cubicles. In today's episode, we'll talk about the adjustments we need to make as we return to our workplace. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching NetTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. To talk about how to safely return to work, we are joined by Ms. Marie Paz Consolacion Manaligod. She's a psychologist from the Miriam College. Also with us is Dr. Ana Margarita Cruz, who is a psychiatrist from the Medical City. Daily cases of COVID-19 have been going down and people are slowly readjusting back to a normal schedule. But the question is, why are some people still reluctant on returning to the workplace? I'll start the conversation with Ms. Paz. Can you explain what could be a possible scenario kaya kung bakit ganito?
Kasi it's again a transition, di ba? So
pre-pandemic, we were used to working, to traveling, and then suddenly we had to be locked down, locked in place, right? And now we're slowly getting back to our offices. And again, that would be a transition for us, a change. So again, we have to adapt, no? And usually it takes time for us to be adapting, no? To being with friends again, maybe missing your home environment, no? And maybe getting also anxious about the new people, because I know you would also have new hires even during the pandemic, and maybe changes that will be going on. So this transition would also cause in a way, stress.
But according to the International Labor Organization, work productivity actually surged during the pandemic while most people were working from home. This actually does not support the notion that people are only productive when they are in the workplace. Now, despite these, we cannot ignore that there are industries that might require people to report back to their office or back to their work. Now, in terms of mental bandwidth or the ability to, really focus on the job, Ms. Paz, can you share with us what were some of the pros and cons of working at home versus working in the office?
So maybe working at home, you had to put that separation because it was so hard to separate, no, like working and being at home, because we had mommies, no, who would say maybe isa-shut muna yung camera kasi going to make the merienda for the kids, no, who were also online. And also, no, the environment at home, it's like there are so many things that you might be seeing there that you have to do, and it also worries you because hindi ka nakafocus sa work mo because you are in your home environment and you have other family members living with you. If you have a little child, no, would say, Mommy, my milk, pagkain ko. And of course, maybe even your partner, your husband or your wife is also working at home. And the bandwidth, right, the connectivity was also a concern there. It's not like when it's face-to-face, no problem with connectivity. Okay, so maybe that would be one of the disadvantage. But of course, an advantage would be we have enjoyed being at home. We were able to bond with family members, right? And of course, again, the traffic, the daily grind, like, so we had a free time on our hands, right? So we were able to like naging plantito, plantita, new recipes because of that free time. It could be like 2 hours or more than because of the travel.
But some people are experiencing what we call post-pandemic anxiety. Before, there was the anxiety of uncertainty during the pandemic. But ngayon, merong post-pandemic anxiety. I'll ask Dr. Anna, let's talk about what anxiety is, because a lot of people may have an idea of it, but yung pala, what they feel is already considered to be part of anxiety. When does this become cause for concern for someone?
Of course, anxiety is a common human reaction to any perceived threat, to change, to adaptation also. It's a vague sense of apprehension. It may manifest as bodily sensations. So it could manifest as palpitations, tightness in the chest, trembling, sweating. This is all normal, but it only becomes a disorder or an anxiety disorder when this becomes debilitating.
For those who are having trouble adapting, coping, we've heard of anxiety attacks, we've heard of panic attacks. So anong difference between these two? How can someone differentiate what they're feeling as an anxiety attack compared to a full-on panic attack?
Anxiety is more vague, diffuse. It's a response to an unknown threat. When the threat is not a direct threat, for example, it comes from your mind's interpretation of the possible dangers that could arise. And we know that sometimes our imaginations get carried away. And then panic attacks are sudden bursts of intense bodily sensations, like the ones I mentioned, palpitation, sweating, basically anything related to the fight or flight response.
When does medication come into play? Does medication come at a certain point, or is medication for these types of disorders a supplement, something to help the coping mechanism?
The number one thing to ask would be if it's already becoming debilitating. Then maybe you need to relieve some of the physiological symptoms happening there. But you also have to take into account, is this person able to make lifestyle changes that may perhaps decrease the stress or alleviate the stress a little bit. Some research going on now has seen links to improvement of anxiety also with practices like mindfulness meditation. There's also, this has long been proven, but none of us do it a lot, exercise.
So when we return though, we'll take a closer look at what happens when we let the stress get the better of us. We're in connection to health. Let's Talk Health Talk. We'll be right back.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement, gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement, ato ni Bay.
Protektahi ang imong mga mata batok sa delikado ug makadaot nga ultraviolet nga silaw sa adlaw ug uban pa. Pinaagi sa pagsulob og eksakto nga prescription sa antiyohos o antipara. Likay ang mga simptomas sama sa hanap nga pananaw sa layo o duol nga basahon, sakit sa ulo ug uban pa nga makaapekto sa atong kahimsog nga ang hinungdan depekto sa atong mga mata. Alang sa kumpleto nga primary eye care, contact lenses, fashion eyewear, computer eyeglasses, sunglasses, accessories ug uban pa, adto kita sa AG Buñuel Optical Clinic. Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic nagpahinumdum kanato nga ang kahimsog sa atong mga mata usa ka prioridad nga angay ipa-check up kausa matag tuig aron pagsiguro nga luwas kita sa piligrong mga sakit. Pinaagi sa lisensyado og qualified optometrists nga maoy mo prescribe sa eksaktong kagamitan ug kung primary eye care ang pagahisgutan. Duaw lang silang buhatan sa 3636 sa Nicolas Street, Surigao City ug adunay ilang extension office sa Aurelianida Street, Cantilan, Surigao del Sur. Ayaw kalimti higala, AG Buñuel Optical Clinic.
Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic doon na branch dito sa lungsod sa Dapa sa may Lupis Haina Street, Poblasyon Dapa, Surigao del Norte.
Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic dinhi sa siyudad ng Surigao. No transfer na sa bag-ong location sa Nicolas Street, Ragyahapon, tapad sa Garcia Hotel at Bang sa Unicity.
GSM Blue ang kasama. Drink responsibly. Ang Gen Pomelo, kuhang-kuha ng GSM Blue. Choose what's true and just chill and enjoy with GSM Blue. Drink responsibly.
Ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated na sa ilang bagong location sa Dalan, Burgos, ning atong syudad. Mahimo niyong tawagan sa telephone number 231-7478 or 826-3663. Mga produkto nga inyong mapalit, genuine, Makita Power Tools sama sa planer, drill, grinder, Triton Paints, construction supplies, angle bars, flat bars, GI pipes, automotive spare parts, Firefly electrical devices sama sa switches, bulbs ug outlets. Adto ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated sa ilang bagong pwesto sa Dalan, Burgos ning syudad. Makahangyo ka o makabarato pagyod diha sa Riverside Parts Master Incorporated.
Sipon plus baradong ilong na may kasamang pananakit ng ulo? Pre, ba't ka nagtitiis? Kung meron namang Calabo Premium Rub, Calabo Premium Rub, isang pahid lang, nanunuot ang sarap sa pakiramdam sa ulo, ilong at sarap sa may ginhawa. Tandaan, basta sipon na may kasamang sakit ng ulo at baradong ilong, magpahid lang ng Calabo Premium Rub. Mabisa, kaya sigurado. Gawa ng Jesser Marketing. Mabibili na ngayon sa mga butika. Ang kapinghot sa ilong nga imong giantos, hasol kaayo kini, hilabi na kung apilan ng pagsipon nga lisod tang tangon. Sulay higala ang gahom sa Calabo Premium Rub. Ipahid palibot sa imong ilong. Aron ang gahom sa Calabo Extract inubanan sa malunggay and virgin coconut oil manuhot-suhot kini. Calabo Premium Rub, ang sulbad sa pingot nga ilong. Calabo Premium Rub is a quality product of Jesser Marketing.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to Med Talk Health Talk, where caring is always our calling. According to LinkedIn, 4 in 10 companies in Asia Pacific are experiencing a higher attrition rate due to the pandemic. This means people are quitting their jobs, primarily due to mental exhaustion and burnout. Ms. Paz, when it comes to mental exhaustion, let's start with that muna. How would someone be able to rationalize or know that they're already at that point where they're mentally exhausted?
They would tell to themselves, I can't think anymore. I do not have any creative ideas. It's not there. It's not working. It's like, I think that was also the term, the brain fog, no? Because you were so worried or you're worried about so many things. And when you're worried, the mind does not open up. And when we also look at that, no, the added worry, because maybe again, going back to work and adapting again to all these changes, no, takes a toll on our minds, no?
Now, Dr. Anna, let's talk about burnout naman. Is there a cut and dry point where someone can be considered as having been burnt out from their work, from their job?
So burnout is a syndrome that results from chronic workplace stress. It's usually characterized by 3 dimensions. So the first one is exhaustion, and this can be in the form of mental, emotional, or physical. And then there's also negative feelings towards work. This is when you're starting to have doubts about your capabilities. There's also feelings of hating the job already and dreading to go to work. Okay, there's also reduced professional efficacy, okay, or a decline from your previous productivity. And the things that you found easy to do before, not so easy to do anymore.
How serious is burnout? If someone reaches that point of burnout, is this something where professional help is indeed advised? Or is this something that a person can deal with on their own?
Strictly speaking, burnout is not a medical condition, but it is part of the International Classification of Disease, or the ICD. That's kind of like the Bible of mental health conditions. And it's considered a factor that leads to healthcare services, people needing healthcare. So it's been definitely linked to physical conditions. There's increased risk for obesity. There's increased risk for heart disease. There's declined immunity also. And then serious mental health conditions also.
Now, we have to admit that it's not just sometimes the workload, but the people that you work with could be these triggers or these causes for some mental exhaustion or even burnout. Ms. Paz, how do we solve that scenario? When hindi lang yung trabaho ang nagko-cause ng anxiety and stress, but it's the colleagues who contribute to one's burnout or even mental exhaustion.
You know, I guess it's very important even for companies now. No, it's good that we have the mental health law and all that. They really work on this well-being of their employees. So maybe as they transition back to work, it would be good if there's like perhaps a webinar, something like that, no? So that everyone in the office, they're conscious about each colleague, that everybody should take care of one another, right? So support one another, look also into certain boundaries, because during work from home, parang we felt that you could call anybody anytime. Naging 24/7, no? But we still follow certain rules, no? That work time is really 8 to 5, something like that, no? And then these are the things also that we should be mindful of. And I think employees would need, no, a little, what they call this, a webinar, reminders of how it should be, and telling them also that it's okay if you feel burned out or if you're going there, because prevention is still the key.
No, Ms. Paz, is there such a thing as happy stress? Yung pagod na pagod ka na sa kakatrabaho, but there's this sense of fulfillment that still makes you want to go back to the job the next day? Or is all anxiety, all types of exhaustion the same, whether it be good or bad?
So the happy stress, we may call it like the eustress, no? So stress is good for us because sometimes it motivates us. It pushes us to do better, no? That's why we also do better when we know there's a timeline, when we know that perhaps we may be promoted. It stresses us because we are anxious about the new job, but we're also happy about it, right? We adapt to it. And when we talk about the happy stress, ito rin palagi, no? The balance of that happy stress, no? Sometimes we know when it's enough, when it makes us happy. Sometimes we say, I know, no? Ang hirap-hirap ng trabaho ko. Ba't ka pa bumabalik? Maybe because it gives us a sense of fulfillment. The people we work with, we support one another. So I guess that would be a good stress because we also need the stress so we don't become complacent.
Now, Dr. Anna, when it comes to dealing with this stress, are there ways that we could manage burnout so it would not lead us to leaving a job?
Well, I think the trick here is to break down stress into bite-sized bits so that it doesn't become chronic stress. That's when it leads to burnout and the other negative health consequences. So it's really important to schedule breaks or pauses throughout the day. Even just 5-minute breaks scattered throughout the entire day can do a lot.
How about when it comes to the point where they're trying to contemplate the decision of leaving work? Let's say their superiors, their colleagues are the ones who are constantly being the triggers or the source of their anxiety and their unhappiness. Should the person try and work out the relationships with these people? Or when is the point where they should say, this environment is not for me, it's healthier for me to leave?
Taking a step back or taking a leave, maybe a transient leave during this time may be helpful. This is for you to be able to assess the pros and cons of staying or leaving a job. In the heat of the moment, it's not really wise to make very rash decisions. So I think this is the importance of taking a step back, paying attention to your needs first, and then making the decision.
Now, Dr. Anna, my next question for that is, if any of our viewers feel that they're in this situation where they're contemplating these heavy decisions to make with their lives, is it a good time to talk to a professional with this? Or can just talking to a friend, talking to a relative be enough consult for them to achieve a proper answer?
It doesn't have to be a professional as long as this is a person that you trust and that you look up to. Okay, we all have that person in our lives that we go to for difficult moments in time.
When we come back, we'll provide tips on how you can cope in the workplace. This is Med Talk Health Talk. Stay tuned.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement, gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement, ato ni Bay.
Maayong balita sa tanan sa atong panginahanglan sa panimalay, mga gamit, ingon man mga dekorasyon, pwede na natong mapalit diha sa Wellington Bazaar. Anausab sa Wellington Bazaar ang mga bestidahon, karsunison, plain t-shirt, plastic chair, floor mat, mantel, banig, folding bed, habol, mosketero, trapal, lideret, basketball, stuffed toys ug mga dulaan sa bata. Ang Wellington Bazaar ana magalagad kanato sa Dalan Kaimo ning Dakbayan sa Surigao. Wellington Bazaar, gikan sa mga kawani ug tigdumala sa Wellington Bazaar. Mayong adlaw alang kaninyo. Wellington Bazaar, sukiyon ta sa kanunay.
GSM Blue ang kasama. Drink responsibly. Ang Gen Pomelo, kuhang-kuha ng GSM Blue. Choose what's true and just chill and enjoy with GSM Blue. Drink responsibly.
Uy, Day! Naunsa man ka, Day?
Day, kanang glisod na mo kakita, Day. Uy!
Sus, naunsa ba ka? Uy nga, katong niaging bulan. Okay pa man ka. Naunsa, Day, karon?
Laot siguro ni sisingunit aning cellphone ka na si computer, Day.
Da, mo lagi na akong ingon ba? Uy, Day, nakoy balita para sa imuha. Gamit og Lutein Plus, uy!
Lutein Plus?
Oo, tungod ang Lutein Plus, Day, duna kini 13 ka-ingredients. Hindi lang kini para sa mata, kundi sa imuhang tibuok lawas. Nga maka-assist po sa imuhang anxiety o depression.
Ang Lutein Plus o sa ka-award-winning brand nga gikan pa sa New Zealand.
The award-winning supplements from Clean Green, New Zealand Omega Plus ang support sa heart and blood system ang Lutein Plus. 13 ka mga ingredients, lakip ng vitamins A and C. Dili lamang kung maradyaw sa itong pananaw, nagsuporta sa bini sa ato intirulawas ning panahon nga jari kita kuman sa COVID-19 pandemic. Kinahanglan magpabilin kitang himsog inom sa Lutein Plus, Omega Plus, and Primrose Plus Soft Gel. Inintanan available dia sa New Family Drug, Palma Drug, sa Aquarian Pharmacy.
Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Maayo kini alang sa mga naganto sa high blood. Kung perming kasakit ang imong tangkugo, kung masobraan ka og kaon sa mga lami ang pagkaon, basig ning tukar na ang imong high blood. Pagtumar higala og kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Usa ka capsule bago mo gaon aron siguradong protektado kang kanunay. Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Masaligan og siguradong epektibo batok sa high blood. Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric is a quality product of Jesser Marketing. RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk. We're your partner in healthcare. Now, a number of people have reported experiencing brain fog during the pandemic. And there are also studies that say that people who did not even have COVID also experienced inflammation in their brain. And this is due to the stress of living through a pandemic. Ms. Paz, when we talk about brain fog, what does a person feel? Could you describe some of the characteristics of brain fog?
So it's like the person is confused about things, no? They cannot think clearly. And even in terms of productivity, no, they see that decline. No? So they cannot think clearly. They may not also be rational in the way they think, and they also see the difference, no? In terms also of making decisions.
Now, Dr. Anna, I'd like to talk to you about, lately we've been talking about tips and advice, for the casual worker and how to cope. Let's talk about workaholics, because workaholics, they might see this and their anxiety is coming from not being able to work. They're so eager to get back into it. Let's discuss being a workaholic. A lot of people have heard this term. Is this something that is a positive? Or being a workaholic, does this have some downsides? If it does, could you please mention some of them, some of the red flags?
All right. So being a workaholic is not necessarily bad. Some people hire workaholics because of their drive, because of their motivation. But if this is taken again to the extreme, I think that's when the problem happens. And some problems that may arise would be burnout. And we've been talking about this for a while. I guess this is something that, because you have to remember, for workaholics, it's really not automatic for them to schedule breaks or rest or recovery periods for them, because they're go all the time. So I think it's important to let these people know that work and rest are actually partners. Rest is not counterproductive to work.
Before we go, Ms. Paz, do you have any advice for our viewers, especially when it comes to coping with trying to get back to work?
So take each day as it comes, no? Breathe in, relax, no? Enjoy moments of silence, no? And you're going to be okay, It's the important thing is I did it pre-pandemic. I went through this. I was able to adapt. I'll be able to transition also now. So I guess that's the way to go.
And Dr. Anna, before we go, your tips, please.
Take a break, rethink what's important to us, reprioritize. We're valuing health more. We're valuing the people around us more. And I think that's something we can take away from this.
And with that, I'd like to thank Ms. Paz, Consolacion Manaligod, and Dr. Anna Cruz for being with us today, sharing your insights and expertise on the topic. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.
Network. Radyo Ronda.